Have you ever heard of a case where a friend's unwavering persistence led to solving a brutal murder after 20 years? What could have possibly happened to 20-year-old Angela Samota on that fateful night in Dallas, Texas, when she called her boyfriend in a panic about a strange man at her door? Who was this mysterious man, and what could have been his motive? Join me as we unravel the twists and turns of this perplexing case on Mystery Resolved. But before that, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more such interesting videos. Without any further ado, let's get started. On a chilly October night in 1984, 20-year-old Angela Samota made a frenetic phone call to her boyfriend Ben McCall about a strange man at her door who was asking to use her bathroom phone. But what happened next was beyond anyone's worst nightmare. Who was this mysterious man, and what led to Angela's brutal murder? This case remained unsolved for 2 decades until a determined best friend stepped in. Nestled in the heart of region lies Dallas, Texas, a bustling metropolis brimming with cultural attractions and sights. The Dallas Museum of Art in the Arts District showcases thousands of years of art history, while the Crow Collection of Asian art captivates visitors with its stunning exhibits. With a population of 1.3 million according to the 2020 census, Dallas is the 9th most populous city in the U.S. Angela Mary Samota was the 5th child born to Frank and Betty Ruth Samota, who were thrilled to welcome their precious daughter on September 19, 1964 in Alameda, California. Growing up with her loving mother and 4 older siblings, Angela's father left the family shortly after her birth and thus had little impact on her life. Angela Samota was a bright and amiable young woman with a keen intellect that shone through her academic achievements. Excelling in her studies, she pursued her passion for electrical engineering and computer science at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, where she was one of the few women in the computer science department. As a member of the Zeta Tau Alpha sorority, Angela was also known for her vibrant personality and social charm, often attracting attention wherever she went. It was at the university that she crossed paths with her roommate Sheila Wasowski, who was her polar opposite in many ways. While Angela prioritized her studies and frequently burned the midnight oil, Sheila was dyslexic and struggling to keep up with her coursework. Despite their differences, both women had experienced the absence of fathers in their lives, and this shared experience ultimately brought them together. Although the initial strain in their relationship was palpable in the first semester, the two became inseparable and developed a deep and lasting friendship. This bond would prove to be crucial in the years to come as Angela's life was tragically cut short in a brutal murder that would take 2 decades to solve. Angela and her friend Sheila were excited for their junior year in college, looking forward to their future aspirations. However, Angela's future was tragically cut short on October 12, 1984. She had spent the day at the State Fair with 2 evangelist friends, Rachel Buchanan and Anita Cadalla, and later went to a nightclub called the Rio Dome Dance Club, where she socialized with many people she knew. After dropping off her friends, she visited her boyfriend Ben McCall before returning to her own apartment to sleep. At 1:45 a.m. on October 13, 1984, Angela called Ben in a panic, saying that a strange man she did not recognize was outside her apartment asking to use her bathroom and phone. It's unclear when the man arrived if Angela let him in. During the call, she sounded frightened and abruptly ended the conversation, saying she would call him back. Unfortunately, this was the last time Ben heard from her. Despite repeatedly trying to call her back, there was no answer from Angela, leaving Ben worried and desperate for answers. After becoming increasingly worried about Angela's safety, Ben drove to her apartment and found the door locked in despite repeated knocking. Fearing the worst, he contacted the police, who arrived less than an hour after Angela's call to him. Together, they forced their way into the apartment, and where they were met with a gruesome scene. Angela's lifeless body lay naked on her bed, covered in blood and multiple stab wounds. The brutality of the attack suggested that the perpetrator knew Angela personally, leading detectives to believe that the motive was likely personal. Angela's body was taken away for an autopsy, and the investigation began. The first person police questioned was her boyfriend Ben McCall, who had been present at the apartment when they arrived. Initially, police were suspicious of Ben due to his absence from Angela's night out with friends. However, after checking his alibi with his employers and finding it to be truthful, he was no longer considered a suspect. After Ben was cleared as a suspect, the police redirected their focus to finding the person responsible for Angela's brutal murder. The news of her death spread quickly throughout the university, leaving everyone in disbelief that such a vibrant and outgoing person could meet with such a gruesome end. Nobody had any clue as to who could have committed such a heinous crime. When Angela's closest friend Shyla Wasaski heard the tragic news, she was devastated. Although she was away from college with her family at the time, she screamed in agony upon learning of her friend's death. Instead of returning to university, Sheila decided to devote herself to uncovering the truth about Angela's murder. The autopsy report revealed that prior to the fatal stabbing, Angela had been by her killer. DNA evidence was recovered from her body, including samples from her kit test and skin from underneath her fingernails. The presence of DNA under her fingernails indicated that Angela had valiantly attempted to fight off her attacker. However, in 1984, there were limited options for utilizing DNA evidence, so it was collected and stored with the hope that it would prove useful in the future. The investigation then turned to Russell Buchanan, Angela's male friend, who had accompanied her to the fair and nightclub on the night of her murder. Russell was a 23-year-old architect who was a few years older than Angela and her friends. Given her interest in networking, it is possible that Angela saw him as a beneficial connection for her future career prospects, which could explain why she had befriended him. Despite being extensively questioned and cleared by a lie detector test, Russell Buchanan remained a person of interest in Angela's murder case. Angela's friend Sheila had always felt something suspicious about him, and when the police asked her to have dinner with Russell to check the story, he told her the same thing he told defense attorney Richard Jesus Haynes, which only added to their suspicions. Russell actually hired a top defense attorney, Richard Jesus Haynes, which only added to their suspicions. However, with no physical evidence tying him to the crime, the police were unable to charge him, and he became the last suspect in the case. As leads began to dry up, the case went cold, leaving little hope for justice for Angela. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, Angela's case eventually lost its urgency and became just another unsolved crime. However, there was one person who refused to let it go: Angela's friend, Sheila. The news of Angela's murder had shattered Sheila, who had chosen not to return to college and instead moved in with her mother to cope with the loss. Sheila was determined to find out who was responsible for her friend's death. She frequently contacted the detectives working on the case, checking for any updates or new leads. Over time, she developed a close relationship with the lead detective and would often meet him for drinks to discuss the case. She even invited him to her wedding 4 years after Angela's death, a testament to the strength of their friendship. However, as Sheila's life moved forward and she started a family, her pursuit for justice for Angela took a backseat. She eventually moved to Tennessee with her family, but the unresolved case contributed to weigh heavily on her mind. In 2004, 20 years after Angela's death, Sheila was working on her Bible study when she experienced something extraordinary. While attending a lecture, Sheila found it difficult to read her Bible due to the small print. As she looked to her right, she was surprised to see clear vision of her friend Angela, whom she had lost 20 years prior. Initially, Sheila thought she was dreaming, but later interpreted it as a divine message from God. Although there were no spoken words between them, Sheila felt that the vision was a sign to continue pursuing justice for Angela. After the experience, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and immediately called the Dallas Police Department to follow up on the case. However, when Sheila first contacted the police in 2004, she was disappointed to learn that there was no dedicated cold case unit. Undeterred, she asked to speak to the detective who had previously worked on Angela's case and left a message for him, hoping for a response. Despite receiving no response from the detective, despite leaving hundreds of messages, Sheila refused to give up on her quest to find her friend's killer. She took matters into her own hands by conducting her own research, compiling a list of sexual assault cases and their suspects that occurred around the time of Angela's murder. She persisted in her efforts to reopen the case and even considered becoming a private investigator, studying for months and obtaining a license. Despite her hopes to become a PI would make the police take her more seriously, they still ignored her efforts. However, Sheila refused to be deterred and continued to push the Dallas Police Department to reopen the case. Finally, after months of persistence, the police department gave in and reopened the case. After years of persistence and pursuing the Dallas Police Department, Sheila finally had a breakthrough in the case. A new female detective named Linda Crum was assigned to the investigation and met with Sheila to discuss the details. During the meeting, Sheila learned that the police still had the DNA evidence from the original investigation, which had previously been thought to have been destroyed in a flood. Sheila knew this evidence was crucial in solving the case and urged the Dallas police to have it tested. In 2008, the DNA was sent for testing, and in 2009, Sheila received the news that she had been waiting for. "We got him." However, she was surprised to learn that the suspect was not Russell Buchanan, but instead someone she had never heard of before, Donald Bess. Bess was a serial rapist who had been on parole at the time of Angela's murder, after being sentenced to 25 years in prison for aggravated rape and aggravated kidnapping. He had been released in 1984 and tragically took Angela's life the same year. In 1985. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for 1 count of aggravated rape, 1 count of aggravated kidnapping, and 1 count of sexual assault in an unrelated case in Harris County, Texas. Donald Bess, the man who took the life of Angela Samota in 1984, was finally identified as her killer in 2009, thanks to the persistence and dedication of Sheila, Angela's best friend. Despite being told that all DNA evidence from the original investigation had been destroyed in the flood, Sheila was overjoyed to learn that the evidence still existed and pushed the Dallas police to get it tested. Bess, a serial rapist on parole at the time of Angela's murder, was found guilty and sentenced to death in 2010. During the trial, several other women testified to Bess's violent behavior towards women, and his ex-wife came forward with stories of abuse. Bess's appeal and petition to the Supreme Court were both denied, and in April 2016, the Texas Criminal Court of Appeals upheld the trial court's decision. However, Bess died in prison from a heart attack on October 8, 2022, before he could face execution. Despite intending to retire her private investigator's license, Sheila continues to practice and serves as an example of how anyone can uncover the truth with dedication and effort. This case highlights the potential of modern forensic technology and the importance of never giving up on seeking justice for victims of crime. What are your thoughts on this case? Isn't the love Sheila had for her best friend and the amount of effort she put in to make sure her case was never forgotten simply amazing? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe and thank you for watching.